Hey everybody, welcome to Culinary Characters Unlocked. I'm David Page. On this episode, a Milwaukee chef who said no to culinary school, traveled repeatedly to Italy to cook there, and now serves up what he calls Midwest Italian, heavy on the handmade pasta. It got him named a 2026 James Beard Awards finalist. Here's Zak Baker. Chef, thanks for being here. How you doing?
Thanks for having me. I'm doing great today.
How many years have you been cooking professionally?
I started in restaurants in 1995. I was not cooking at that point. I was a busboy.
I came across an interview with you in which you declared that you were perhaps the world's worst busboy.
I'm pretty sure they thought so. I'm from Door County, so everybody just gets a job.
Now, you guys in Door County, I used to live in Minnesota, so I get that you say Door County and it's like you're supposed to know where it is.
Yeah.
Door County's in Wisconsin.
Yes, it's the peninsula. It's like the little tiny skinny pinky of Wisconsin that extends off into Lake Michigan. And at its base where it meets the mainland, that's where Green Bay is, which is where I was born. And then I grew up in Door County, and in Door County, it's a touristy spot. So when you're 14 or however, well, I must have been 14 because it was 95, you get a job working in a hotel, a bed and breakfast, a restaurant, a golf course. But I was the worst busser they had there that summer by a long shot.
Where was this job?
It was a place called the Inn at Cedar Crossing, which was in Sturgeon Bay. They actually just had their 40th anniversary.
So they survived you being the world's worst busser?
Yes, somehow. When I was just a kid, I didn't even really know how to have a job. And I remember them sitting me down and being like, it's not your fault you're this terrible. We're going to retrain you. The idea of going back into training with them just seemed painful to deal with.
So what'd you do?
I said, can I just work in the kitchen and kind of like wash dishes or something? I had a friend who I played in a band with. We had like a little band in 8th grade going into high school that washed dishes there. I just wanted to work it back by my friends. And it was sort of, like a little stroke of fate or whatever, like that I wound up in the kitchen.
So you go there, you're washing dishes. How'd you end up cooking?
When you're a dishwasher in a restaurant, if you get good enough at it, you wind up with a little bit of free time. And like any adult's going to look at, 14, 15-year-old me and be like, hey, what are you doing right now? I'll be like, nothing. Be like, do this. Next thing you know, it's just starts small. You're like peeling potatoes. You're chopping an onion. I remember them being horrified the first time I grabbed a big chef knife and tried to do the chop thing that I've seen people do on TV. And they were just like, whoa, 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 whoa. Let us show you how to hold one of those.
You might want to curl those fingers.
I just slowly started doing other things. And then the next summer I came back and I would still wash dishes, but I started doing more prep work and making soups and stocks and braising short ribs and making Caesar dressing. Things that, looking back now, I was like, I would never let some young, unproven person make an emulsified dressing for my kitchen.
Okay, emulsified, for those who don't know, we all hear the word. Emulsification is oil and something else.
An oil and a liquid, essentially. You're emulsifying the oil into the egg yolks for the Caesar dressing.
You're combining two things that naturally wouldn't combine unless you beat the hell out of them, right?
They don't want to mix. That's why the oil and water thing exists. The cliche is like, oh, they're like oil and water.
So you start cooking and you're making stuff you're totally unqualified to make.
Totally.
But as I understand it, you ended up as a sous chef there. Sous chef's a management job. How old were you then?
I think I was 18 when I became the sous chef. Towards the back end of finishing high school. A year before that, I was kind of going through the whole, what am I going to do when I grow up? Where do I want to go to college? What should I study? And I was lamenting at work about the indecisions and like the stress of trying to make something of myself or try to tell my parents what I was going to do. And the sous chef at the time looks at me and he's like, well, why don't you just do this? And it was like a light went off. He's like, you really like doing this, which I did really like doing it. I was already reading cookbooks and stuff like that, but I never thought about it like a career. And the second he said that to me, my mindset changed. I was 17, 18 years old. And all I could think about after that point was like, I'm going to have a restaurant someday.
You made a dish there that has had a lasting impact on you, correct?
Yeah. So when I started doing the prep cooking, like my second summer, third summer there, we had a very popular quiche on the menu. So this was like a breakfast, lunch, dinner place. Quiche was on the breakfast and lunch menu.
That was back when real men didn't eat quiche.
Exactly, yes. Quiche had not crossed the popular lexicon into being an every person food yet. But it was Door County, so fancy schmancy tourists would come in and they'd have like a little petite green salad and like a slice of quiche. I thought they had me make it because maybe I was just really good at it. Looking back now, I realized nobody really wants to do it because it's such an immense project because you have to make the pastry pastry. You have to roll the pastry. You have to prep the ingredients that go inside the quiche. You have to make the custard, like the sort of royale filling that goes in. And then you got to carry these big, heavy sheet trays full of deep tart pans with a liquid in them and try to get them in a big oven without spilling them. Because if you get them over the sides, it's going to stick really badly when you try to get it out. And the big challenge back then for me was to make sure I cooked it enough.
Nobody likes quiche tartare.
No. Well, especially the line cooks that when they go to grab it, they're like, kid, this is liquid in the middle.
Well, what was in the middle?
It was half and half in cream and eggs, just whole eggs. It wasn't anything crazy fancy. And then we had to have one that was vegetarian and then one that I guess didn't have to be meat, but like we always had to have a vegetarian one and then the other one usually had meat. They kind of just let me pick what I wanted to put in it, which seems insane to me now. You know, as a chef, I'm a big believer in the repetition thing. Make something over and over and over and over and over again. And to this day, I'm making things that I feel like I've been making for decades, and I'm still all of a sudden gleaning some sort of new little insight into it. And I think the quiche was sort of the first thing that became this repetitive task that, you know, I would try it a certain way and then it would turn out or not. It would be worse or it would be better. Then I would have to tweak it the next day, just keep tweaking and tweaking to the point where I started making it at home. Not a lot of 16, 17-year-old drummer rock and roll guys are making quiche at home in their free time.
So in terms of its impact on your life and or career, it taught you to keep at it? It's a fond memory? What's the real estate it occupies in your head?
It just sort of laid the foundation idea of how to continually just keep working on something. And the idea that something's never, ever done. You could keep making something 100 times, 1,000 times, and there's probably still some sort of little sleight of hand you can do to make it easier. And it might not even be something perceptible in terms of like a recipe or a temperature. It's just like, if I prepare this in this order, if I put this dough in the refrigerator and let it cool a little bit before I roll it out, because nobody told me to do that. It was years before I realized that made it way easier. And then I'll put this in the refrigerator, let this dough cool down, and then while that's working, I will mix the custard filling so it has time to not have a bunch of air bubbles in top of it. So it's like a nice, smooth, dense custard. Just stuff like that, you know, and quiche was my first exposure to something like that.
Was there any emphasis on food or culinary in your household as you were growing up?
We would go out to eat occasionally, but not like anything fancy. Like every now and then we'd go to like a supper club sometimes.
Explain supper club for anyone who hasn't lived in Wisconsin.
I guess it's what a lot of people consider a steakhouse, but a supper club in Wisconsin has a specific, you know, there's typically some fried fish on the menu. There's a lot of times like a relish tray or like a little tiny little thing of appetizers that would come out when you'd sit down. Everything comes with a soup or a salad, you know, sort of like a classic Midwestern Americana, like fancy restaurant, like what was deemed fancy back then.
I've lived in the Midwest. What's good to say about Midwestern cuisine?
I think Midwestern cuisine is simple, and that can be not a great thing if you're not buying good quality ingredients and preparing each individual thing. Like a broiled steak, mashed potatoes, or some boiled potatoes just like rolled in butter, there's not a lot to hide there. So if the potatoes are overcooked or undercooked, or the steak is not seasoned or not cooked properly, you're going to see that right away. So I feel like the simplicity of Midwestern cuisine is sort of the draw of it. And especially now these days, as everybody's realized that we have such great farmland here, the bounty of things that grow in the wild here and that we can grow in the ground and that we can raise here is just staggering, you know. And then you have the Great Lakes right here too for all the freshwater fish.
Okay, so you're growing up. Now, Door County's a tourist area, so was it small town life?
Oh, very, yeah. Sturgeon Bay was the biggest city in Door County, and it was 10,000 people.
Lifelong Packers fan, I assume.
Yeah, where I'm from in Green Bay, you either like the Packers or you find a new family.
Okay. Favre or Rodgers?
I would say Rodgers because at least he didn't go play for the Vikings.
Yeah, I was living in Minnesota when Favre did. It was fun.
Oh, yeah. No. That was the crushing feeling of watching him come and just kill us was about the worst thing that had ever happened here, I'm pretty sure.
Look, I've seen that play out so many ways. I grew up in New England. I'm a Tom Brady fan. I suddenly became a Tampa Bay fan.
Yeah, totally, yeah.
We'll be right back. You work your way up to sous chef at the age of 18. Mm-hmm. I take it you never went to culinary school.
I did not. I was going to. My parents just always wanted me to apply myself. They didn't want me to just sort of be listless and not doing anything.
Well, working your way up to sous chef seems like you applied.
Totally. And they were really into that. They thought that was really cool. I think they were really shocked because I feel like I was sort of a lazy child around the house, like getting me to do chores and stuff like that was like pulling teeth. I got good grades, but I never wanted to do my homework. I would put put off projects in school until the very last night. Cooking was this, all of a sudden there was like a regimented structure that clicked for me and I followed it. I thought, why not culinary school? So I worked with this guy who had gone to the New England Culinary Institute in Vermont. And he told me about an advanced placement test that he took where he got the test out of half of the program. So I wind up engaging with this culinary school. I have a couple proctored written tests at the local library that I had to do first. And I passed both of them. And basically at that point, they invited me there to do a practical exam where I would have to cook for them. My mom drives me to Vermont. I think I had to go into the kitchen at like 7 or 8 a.m. I went to this kitchen. There was an instructor there and he looks at me. He's like, okay, you have 3 hours to make me 3 things. You can use anything you can find here, any equipment, any food you can find in the kitchen you can use. I'll be back in 3 hours. I made like a carrot and ginger soup. I was really into like the concept of a perfectly trussed and roasted chicken. So I made something like that and some sides. And I don't remember what the third thing was. It might have been like a risotto or something like that. And I passed. The guy was a little shocked. He's like, how old are you? I'm like, I'm 18. He's like, you owe somebody a lot of things. How did you learn how to do all this? So yay for me. I've passed this test. We go around and tour the culinary school for the next 2 days. We get in the car and we're driving back to Wisconsin. I look at my mom and I don't think I'm going to go to culinary school. And she's real mad at this point. She's like, we just drove across the country for you to, against all odds, do this test that they told you nobody ever really passes. And now you don't think you want to go? I was like, well, if I've learned this much working at one restaurant, what could I learn if I worked somewhere else? And they'll pay me to do it. It was a really nice school and they've had a lot of really good graduates there, but it's just everybody's got their own thing they have to do and they have to do it their way. You have to own who you are and how you do things. And I just felt like at that point that it was a better plan for me to not go to culinary school.
So what'd you do?
I stayed in Door County like another year and just kept working.
And then what?
A little brief foray. I never stopped working in restaurants, but for a couple years there, I was really focused on the music thing. So I actually did go to school and get an associate's degree, but in music recording. When I graduated, it was just in time for the digital wave to basically start closing recording studios everywhere. Without anything else to do, I was like, I need a job. My parents were living down in Milwaukee at this point. I came to Milwaukee. I had a friend who was working in Milwaukee as a valet. I'm like, I want to work at a really good Italian restaurant, like a real one, not a red sauce spaghetti meatball. I want like a real one. I'm like, do they have one here? And he says that he valets at a restaurant and they have some sort of pasta that's like a paper something. And I look at him, I'm like, pappardelle? He's like, yeah, that's the word. Pappardelle is the wide ribbon. And I was like, I've heard of that, but I've never seen it with my own eyes. Maybe I should go work there. I go down there and I interview with the sous chef. The chef was out of town at the time. He's like, well, what can you tell me about yourself? And, you know, I'm kind of a blustery kid. I'd always felt like I was pretty good at cooking. I'm like, I'll cook whatever you guys have here and I'll cook it better than anybody who works for you. And he's like, okay. Working there, this is for the Bartolotta family.
They have a group of Italian restaurants, right?
Yeah. Well, they're not all Italian. They also had a French restaurant, the one that I worked at. When I left the company in 2013, they probably had like 11 or 13 restaurants and catering venues around Milwaukee.
You worked there as what, a line cook?
I worked at Ristorante Bartolotta, and I was a line cook when I started there in 2003. In 2005, I got promoted to sous chef. That's when my eventual wife started working at the restaurant too. That's when I met Sarah.
Was she cooking? Was she front of house?
She was front of house. But when a new person would start, Bartolottas would make the servers go through like a couple weeks of training, and they had to spend like 4 or 5 days in the kitchen. When I first met my wife, I was in charge of the kitchen that night. I was a sous chef.
So you started showing off left and right.
Well, no, I actually had her break down a bin of Brussels sprouts. They were tasked with helping us, and I was like, well, this is easy. You can do this. And I might have shown off a little bit.
Yeah.
So this was 2005. I was a sous chef there. I was there until 2009 when they moved me over to Lake Park Bistro, their French restaurant, which I was a little miffed about because I was very into the Italian thing.
Yeah, but you were chef de cuisine there, right? Which is just under the executive chef.
Yeah, under Adam Siegel, who has a James Beard Award.
By the way, let me throw it in here. You're a finalist for 2026.
I am.
Best Chef Midwest.
Yeah.
And we're recording this pretty close to the ceremony. So
yeah.
If you win, congratulations.
Thank you.
If you don't, who cares about winning? The nomination is what mattered. So would you...
I'm not going to say winning wouldn't matter, but you're kind of right. We've kind of flown under the radar by design here. When we opened Lucchenzo, we don't have a marketing company. We don't have publicists. We don't have any of that sort of stuff. We have an Instagram page that we like to put pictures of food on, and that was about it. And that was just because Sarah and I had spent 10 years working for Bartolotta, 5 years working for like another kind of multi-unit restaurant group thing. And we were just sort of burned out on the corporate restaurant vibe where seemingly so much emphasis is put on marketing.
You worked for Bartolotta for like 10 years.
Yeah.
Then you went to
Pizza Man.
Pizza Man, which is...
Pizza Man was like a legendary Milwaukee pizza restaurant. Square cut, the classic Midwestern type of pizza.
You do pizza there. Before that, you're deeply into Italian food.
Yeah.
You went to Italy, right?
Yeah. When I was working at Ristorante and when I was working at Lake Park for Bartolotto's, I would every other year would go to Italy and do stages.
Stages means working for free.
Yeah. Basically, so like the chef of Ristorante, Juan Urbieta, who's a huge mentor to me and taught. I always tell people Juan has forgotten more about Italian food than I'm ever even going to know.
And where was his restaurant?
He's the chef of Ristorante Bartolotta.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Still to this day. He was there when I got there in 2003. He's still the guy in charge of that restaurant.
Well, so did he set you up on these stages or what?
He did. We would do winemaker dinners. He didn't even ask me first. He kind of like pulled aside a winemaker and said, hey, I have a sous chef who's really interested in Italian food and he would love to go and work in Italy. Do you have any friends who have restaurants or like know of somebody who could put him up? Like he will come and work for free for like a month, blah, blah, blah. So he comes to me and he's like, hey, I set you up a stage in Italy. I couldn't say no. I hadn't even thought about it though. And I definitely was, how am I going to get money for a ticket to Italy? Like I don't have money. Like, so luckily my, at the time, fiance had a credit card.
Always marry a woman with a high credit limit.
Yeah, no, yeah. It was much higher than mine. Mine was non-existent.
Oh, sure. You were a cook.
And she was a server in a fine dining restaurant. She was making all the money. I was making all the hours.
So for several years, apparently, you go and you stage there, including at a 1-star Michelin. What'd you learn?
Obviously, you learn recipes and preparations and stuff. But more broadly, it was really interesting watching Italian culture interface with food and the way they would talk about it. They would almost seem like they were arguing sometimes about it too. Like they were so into something that would seem so trivial to us here in America. They would talk about it like it was life and death sometimes. They were so into it. And watching the way they would interface with food or the idea that, hey, we're going to go out to eat tonight. By the way, we're going to drive 50 minutes through the countryside to get there. That's just normal here. Whereas in America, people were like, oh, that's all the way across town. I don't want to go there. It's going to be 20 minutes to get there. In Italy, they're driving to the middle of nowhere to go out and have dinner. Just being part of that. And honestly, the sit-down family meal every day, where I would sit down with the people I was working with or the family I would be working for and just sit there and eat whatever they were going to make me.
Coming right back.
I remember one day we didn't really have anything prepared for lunch. So the chef grabbed this tray of 8 or 9 different cheeses, which I'd heard of some of them, but a lot of them weren't things that were being imported into America. He grabbed like 6 jars of different fruit mostardas and we sat down with a bottle of wine and that was lunch. My mind was just kind of being blown on a every 6-hour basis at this point working in Italy.
Italian-American food, which is a great cuisine.
Totally.
And Italian food, which is really a series of regional cuisines.
Totally.
Have very little in common.
They don't. Yeah, you're correct. They don't have a lot in common. People come in, you know, Italian restaurants in America, people walk in here sometimes and they look at the menu and they look at their server a little terrified. They're like, what is all this? I've never seen this. Because it doesn't have a lot of the things that you recognize. We don't have an Alfredo on the menu. We don't have a lot of red sauce-based pastas on the menu.
Let's get to this restaurant.
Yeah.
At some point, you and your wife, you're working at Pizza Man.
Yeah. We were like consultants.
And you look at each other and say, we really ought to open our own place. What happened?
Sarah and I met in 2005. We got married in 2007. Even before that, before we were married, we were already trying to figure out how to have our own restaurant. And a mentor of ours told us that we should practice with somebody else's money first. At the time, it was mostly his money, so it was kind of funny. Mr. Bartolotta had said that to us. What was cool about working at Bartolotta is the management side of it, getting to look at P&L statements for a restaurant. Like, I remember the first time they gave me a P&L, and I was like, oh my God, this is a formula for how you make money.
What was the margin?
I mean, sometimes zero. If we had like a 9 or 10% month back then, like that was great. Normally, you think it's going to be like 3 to 5. Our PAC, our profit after controllables. And it wasn't like, oh, you need to spend less money than you take in. Duh, everybody knows that. But the idea of a P&L having this log of all of the things we would have to account for, because everybody starts a business and you never realize how many things are going to cost you money. By the time Sarah and I opened this place 7 years ago, there weren't really any blind spots anymore for us. So we had been planning since then. And I would make pro forma after pro forma. We would look at building after building for years, trying to find the right thing in the right situation. Most importantly, how are we going to get the money to do it?
So what made it happen?
So we had been working for Pizza Man for 5 years as consultants, and we'd opened a few restaurants, and we had been socking money away going back to our time at Bartolotto's. I hadn't been to Italy since my stages, so in 2018, we go to Italy with some wine importers. We had done a dinner for this wine importer in Milwaukee, and she was just blown away by it. So she's like, you have to come on this tour and check out all of our properties with us.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, twist my arm. They paid for the ticket, everything. It was awesome. But I kind of knew, and I warned Sarah, I said, when I get back in Italy, I said, it's going to turn something on in me that I've been kind of doing the business chef thing and driving around and having meetings and trying to run all these restaurants. I said, it's going to make me itchy to do the thing again. And at that point, we were both 37 years old. I was worried I was getting old. I was like, it's going to be a lot of work to open a restaurant. I don't want to be 45 and try to open a restaurant. I said, I'll be totally sedentary from meetings by then. I won't even know how to work anymore. So we go to Italy. 2 or 3 nights in, I'm hanging out with this guy who makes vermouth. He had cigarettes. I didn't have cigarettes, and I had kind of quit smoking by then, but I was in Italy, and we'd had an amazing dinner and a bunch of wine, and I was like, can I bum a cigarette? So I'm outside with this vermouth guy, talking to him about how what he does is so cool, and he's so passionate about what he does. I decide right then and there. Sarah comes out. I'm like, when we get back, we're quitting. We're going to quit this fancy job we have, and we're going to strike out, and we're going to find a way to do our own thing. I felt alive. I could feel it in my bones at that point. Come back, we put in our notice. We found a spot a month or two after that. Closing on the building took forever, mostly because we're like a classic SBA loan, a small business loan. The one thing I knew from working in a lot of restaurant groups is I didn't want to have a bunch of investors. Investors come with different pressures, and then you have a bunch of people who have ideas about things, and I didn't want to do a restaurant anymore that was other people's ideas. I wanted it to be mine and Sarah's ideas only. If for no other reason that I had to see if it would work after talking about it for so many years. I couldn't retire this job and not have tried. I needed to see if it worked, even if it failed. Otherwise, it was going to be crushing to me not to try. We find the spot. It takes forever to close. So we were done with our jobs in August. We didn't close on the building until December. So we were just doing private little events and one-off things and stuff like that. Started renovations in January. We opened in May without really any fanfare, like any advertising. And we were immediately busy. And this is 2019, May of 2019. We're just killing it, right? First year goes by. We're so busy. We don't even have time to like think about spending money. The restaurant's being profitable and you were putting money away and it's great. And then COVID hits. We were very nervous that we had had such a great first year and we were going to have to start all over again because there would be the brain drain, right? Everybody leaves, start with a whole new staff, retrain. We managed to keep all of our staff engaged.
How long were you closed?
We were closed from whatever, like March 13th until June. But then when we opened, we weren't like open. We were only serving on our patio. We had like a little 30-seat patio in back that we hadn't even used the first year because we were just new and busy and we didn't have the bandwidth for it. And I would always joke, I'm like, this is the 30-seat restaurant I've always wanted to have. And then I would say, turns out it does lose money just like I thought. But we kind of like we limped along. Like we were open outside that year when we could be. We were open until late October on the patio. We shut down. We did some carry out for a while. We weren't gonna suddenly start doing like take-home meals and like meal kits and sandwiches and pizza and all these things. A lot of people did that to stay afloat, but we were so new and I was afraid that if we started doing something else, that we would never be able to get back to doing the thing that we were doing in the first place.
So when were you able to return to business kind of as normal?
I think we reopened in 2021, in June, again, only outside. Because vaccinations had just kind of started that spring. I think around like mid-late July that year, we started taking tables inside again slowly. It was just slow rollings for a couple years after that. You could lose money every month and not go out of business. I don't think people could realize that. And I just knew that if we just stayed the course and kept doing the thing we had been doing, that we would get back to it. And slowly over the years, business has just ramped up. Every year has been better than the previous one, culminating with now we wake up one day in January and we're up for a James Beard Award. So now people can't even get a table here.
I've read you describing the cuisine as Midwest Italian.
Yeah.
You're not talking American red sauce like St. Louis fried ravioli.
No.
What is your definition of Midwest Italian?
Kind of going back to what we were saying about Italy, the thing that would make the most sense in Italy would be to use the best thing that's from the closest spot to you. to cook. In a way, to be an authentic Italian restaurant in the Midwest of the United States would be to focus on the products and the produce and the ingredients that are here. Like, we have a slightly different palette to paint with than what they have in Italy. We're not super rigid about it. Like, I still need good Parmigiano Reggiano. There's no replacement. There's many Parmesans in this country, but they don't do the thing that Parmigiano does. But to cook with inspiration from what we can source locally here, like fresh corn is not popular in Italy. Corn is mostly just dried and milled in the polenta in Italy, or they feed it to things. But nobody eats like a corn on the cob grilled in the summer in Italy. Not that I've ever seen, at least.
Are you serving corn somehow?
We have a corn ragu that we make every year, like around the month of August, that people are just crazy about. And they're like, did you see this in Italy? I'm like, no. I'm not even sure what some of them would think about it if they saw it. They might think it's too weird, but it makes sense for what we do here. The Midwest has such beautiful produce. We have such amazing farmers in this area. I always tell people, it's like, I don't even really plan a menu per se. I get lists from all my farmers and stuff, the different things I can get every week. And I just kind of get excited and I buy a bunch of stuff and then find a home for it. I don't buy things to make something. I make something because I bought something and I have to make something out of it now.
Well, tell me about some of those dishes that made you happy.
Well, the trofie with the corn ragu.
Trofie?
Trofie is like the little corkscrew pasta in Liguria that they serve with pesto.
Just to be clear, you're making all this pasta.
Yes, we make all the pasta we make in-house, yeah. And trofie is made by hand. Every little piece, you have to kind of pull and roll it off. It's weird. It's one of the weirdest things to make. And I like them really small, too. So it's a labor of love because there's got to be, I don't know, 150 of them in each little plate of pasta.
Yeah, you call it a labor of love. I would call it a pain in the ass.
Well, you have to have passion for what you do. From things like that to right now in the Midwest, we just moved through like morel and ramp season. Nettles, which are very popular in Italy, too. Stinging nettles. Ortica, they call it in Italy.
Referring to the times I'd work at NBC's Rome Bureau, there was a woman on staff there who I think was supposedly a secretary, but she was a chef.
Yeah.
Or a cook. And she used to make dandelions, fried dandelion.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. Dandelion greens are what they sound like. They are a green that's basically from the dandelion plant. I'm sure the ones that, like, if you go to the store and buy dandelion greens, they've probably find some way to cultivate them where they can just grow more of the leaf part.
I'm looking at your menu, which is mostly starters and pastas. You only have a couple of secondi listed on this one, halibut and veal. But I'm looking at the various pastas. What's tajarin?
Tajarin is egg yolk heavy. So instead of using whole eggs in flour, you use egg yolks in flour, 00 flour. And tajarin is the dialect that they use in Piemonte for tagliolini. Tagliolini is the small version of tagliatelle. So pappardelle is wide like this, tagliatelle is this wide, tagliolini is this wide, and then tajarin is this wide, but made with predominantly egg yolks in Piemonte.
You've got garganelli?
Garganelli, yeah. Garganelli is like a little ridged, like if you took a square, like a little tiny square and rolled it corner to corner over a dowel on something ridged, like a little windpipe almost.
Well, what I'm looking at on this menu, which I understand changes pretty regularly, I guess, you're serving this pasta with speck, so I guess that's ham.
Yeah.
And radicchio. That looks fabulous. And then above it, here's another one. You've got all these pastas. I've been to Italy a lot. I've never heard of this.
Maloredu.
With pin oak ridge lamb ragu and anchovy pan grattato.
Yep.
I sound like I've never eaten Italian food before in my life. What is this dish?
Maloredu Sardinian. So it's from the islands. It's like a little hand-rolled, ridged gnocchi. I hesitate to call it gnocchi because everybody in America thinks gnocchi is made of potato, whereas gnocchi just means a shape. It's just like a generic term for dumpling in Italy. But it's like a little ridged saffron pasta dumpling, and then we just make like a nice simple lamb ragu with some wine and some tomato and some herbs. And the pan grattato, the focaccia we make here in-house, makes a very distinctive breadcrumb. So we'll grind up the dried focaccia that we make, and then we'll sift it out so we get some of the fine stuff out and use just like the bigger, kind of crunchier pieces.
That implies you have leftover focaccia, and I don't think you're going to have much.
To serve focaccia is to forever be buried in focaccia because it's, for whatever reason, like one of my weird things in restaurants. I'm not super opposed to having things that run out in the night. Sometimes things are momentary and limited available. But if you're a restaurant and you run out of bread, I think that's a fail. It's like a weird mental thing for me. And I think once in our first summer, we ran out of bread one night and I was like, that is never, ever going to happen again. If I think we need 3 loaves, we'll make 4. If I think we need 4 loaves, we'll make 6. If I have to do an event for 80 people, I'm bringing focaccia for 180 people. I can't help myself with it. So there's inevitably lots of extra focaccia all the time. And grinding some of it into breadcrumbs, which doesn't even come close to using all the leftover, but helps a little bit. We'll just melt a little bit of garlic and some good salt-packed anchovy, the ones that you have to kind of fillet off the bone when you take them out of the container, into some olive oil and just toast the breadcrumbs lightly on it. Just that nice, the gnocchi with the ragu and then the crispy kind of hit of the umami.
Stop. I can't take it anymore.
I've always loved lamb and anchovies together too. It's just, that's where that dish comes from. It's just because I like lamb and anchovies more than anything.
As well you should.
Yeah.
Is this menu a tough sell in Wisconsin? And by the way, are you in Milwaukee? Are you in a suburb?
We are in a suburb called Wauwatosa, but if I go 1 block the other way, it's technically in Milwaukee.
Okay. Is this a tough sell there?
I think at a certain time it probably would have been. When we opened, I know that there were people who came in who were a little perplexed by it, but we anticipated that. Especially Sarah has done a great job working with our front of house staff in educating them. And we don't look at people like that who don't get it as a nuisance. Like, to us, it's just an opportunity to kind of broaden somebody's horizons. Once upon a time, I was a guy who loved Italian food when I was a kid. And the first time I had risotto, it blew my mind. And I was really perplexed that I thought I really loved Italian food more than anything. And there was something so good and I'd never even heard of it.
It's like the first time I tried fungi porcini.
Oh my God, right? The king of mushrooms. The porcino's the king of mushrooms. It's my most favorite. So I think it's become a lot less of a hard sell as we've been open longer and longer here. The virtue of not marketing isn't because we're cheap. It's just because if the only way people find out about you is because somebody goes there and has a good time, now you have a ringing endorsement from somebody that they trust. It's not an ad. It's not just some sort of thing that you paid for to have jump up on their Instagram. I don't like being in people's face with stuff like that. As people have come here, they've always come here on the recommendation of friends. So I feel like if you come here and you like it, you're also somewhat editing or trying to decide who you're going to tell to come here. Or you're at least prepping them to be like, no, you're not going to walk in and get a veal parm. Like, they don't have that. We've kind of slowly just broken down what people expect to be Italian food in Milwaukee. And there's like, look, Milwaukee's got a lot of great Italian restaurants.
As I said earlier, Italian-American food is a great cuisine.
It's great. Yeah, it's great.
It's just not a food you eat in Italy.
Totally. It is a brilliant cuisine. And people are like, well, why is it so different then? I'm like, imagine you're Southern Italian in the late 1800s, early 1900s, early 20th century, and you arrive in America. The tomatoes don't taste good. None of the cheeses are the cheeses you recognize. Everything is wrong.
But even if you're poor, you can afford a shit ton of meat, which you couldn't back home.
Yes. Yeah. And carbohydrates. Like, they have flour here. We can make bread. We can make pasta. I feel like it's just such an ingenious cuisine, the way it was adapted to the American palette of ingredients that were here. People are like, you don't put sugar and tomato sauce in Italy. Like, that's weird. Well, why do they do it here? It's because I bet when they got here, the tomatoes, they tried them. They're like, these are terrible. Oh my God, what the hell is this? Put a little sugar in it to try to balance it. Now, we have very good tomatoes in this country now. This was a long time ago, but the habit still applies. It's kind of become its own fork of Italian cuisine. It's its own cuisine. I always tell people things aren't better or worse than something else. They're just different.
You're in the biz. Your wife's in the biz. Mm-hmm. How do you have a private life? Do you have kids?
No. We have 2 new dogs, Beppe and Francesca, sticking with the Italian theme. We live upstairs from the restaurant. You know, a private life, it's always hard in the industry. I think people give restaurants somewhat of a bad rap. Sometimes I think that it's really easy for people to talk about how many hours you have to work and how difficult it is to stay on top of running a restaurant all the time. And I get that. I'm not trying to minimize anybody's experiences or what's difficult about this industry. I've been doing it for 30 years. It was definitely very hard, a lot of them. However, I really like doing this. I don't feel like when I'm here working from 10 to 10 every single day that we're open, 5 days a week, I've tried taking shorter days and just going upstairs, and I get like FOMO when I'm upstairs. I'll try to end my day early and I'm sitting upstairs on my couch and I can hear the music through the floor and I can hear the glasses clinking and I can hear like the dish machine turn on. And I'm just like, oh, I'm missing everything right now. It's so fun. Like, why am I missing everything right now? That's not really the answer you're looking for. You have to make an effort. Now that we've been open 7 years, Sarah and I are more comfortable stepping away a little bit sometimes. We've been trying to take more time visiting my family family in going up to Door County. We're going to go see a show across town tonight. Most of my friends are people from the industry. So a lot of times the days I'm busy, they're busy anyways. I figure I make time when I can and I try to do the fun things I want to do, but I don't feel like I'm wasting my time or my life away doing the thing I love and doing it well with the people that I like working with. Like I like doing this.
That's a lovely summary. That's just terrific. Chef, congratulations again on the James Beard News.
Thank you.
And on everything you've managed to achieve. I mean, you're kicking some butt.
It's been a crazy 30 years, or 31 now. Basically, next week, it's 31 years since I started working in restaurants.
Do you see retirement in your future?
I always joke that I'm the only person who thinks retirement is opening up a smaller restaurant in Door County. We'll see. I don't know. My wife is better at planning long-term than I am, but we've been here 7 years. I don't think a restaurant counts unless it's open 10 years at minimum. So we'll get to 10 years and then we'll see what we do after that. We're not going to start a restaurant group or open up another Lucchenzo West or something like that. I just want to keep doing this for now and we'll see where we land.
Well, Chef, keep enjoying it. Keep succeeding, and whatever happens in a few years, enjoy that too. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, David. It's been a wonderful time.
Zak Baker on Culinary Characters Unlocked. I'm David Page, and I'll see you next time.